Hello and welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Sales. I'm Ashleigh Early.
And I'm Kasey Jones.
And today we are joined by Reva Pellerin. She is the SDR manager at Vidyard. She is also a mother to a delightful little girl. And when she is not killing it with Vidyard, she is working in the yard, knitting, cooking, and working out. So and also spending a lot of time with her family. So we've got lots of stuff to talk about today, starting with just video in general. I mean, Vidyard is obviously basically brought video to sales early on. I don't remember seeing people using video in sales before Vidyard burst on the scene a couple of years ago. So let's just start with kind of the big question. Reva, why should salespeople even leverage video when they're selling?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for sales, or the biggest kind of opportunity for a salesperson when it comes to video, is being able to let your personality come through. Your personality can't really come through in an email. Sometimes it comes through in phone. And I mean, if you're going on site, it can come through, but maybe you're on site once in a deal, if that. So video is like a really low cost, easy way to show your personality. And I think most people in sales are in sales because they really like working with people and they're really easy to get along with. And so it's a benefit to be able to show your personality. And people don't really, people don't really buy from companies, they buy from people, right? So it's really in your best interest from a competitive advantage as well to set yourself apart and build that rapport in a way that a competitor might not be building that rapport. I also think it's just that new iteration of the future of sales. So maybe, 7 or 8 years ago, it was, email's not doing so well anymore. Phone calls aren't doing so well. A lot of people are shifting to social selling, and that proved really effective. But now it's video, and it's those people that are taking a chance and trying it out that are seeing a lot of success, and they're in this moment going to stand out before it becomes the new norm.
I think this is such a huge, such an important point. People don't buy from companies, and companies don't buy from companies. People buy from people, right? And it's really interesting. It's like, I don't care how amazing you think your company and its product are. There's probably 3, 4, a dozen other companies that sell basically the same product. And so what really wins the day is the customer experience, and customer experience starts with sales. And that means injecting that personality and kind of showing off the individual sort of personality, but also the company culture through how you engage with a prospect. And I think, to your other point, it's so much harder to be rude to someone when you kind of know them as a person, and you at least feel like you know them just a little bit more when you've seen them on a video, when you've engaged with them in video in some way, versus just getting an email that's text. And I think there's just something super powerful about starting the connection in that much more sort of personal way. So I'm curious, how do you think about, and how do you recommend, both for your team and for all of Vidyard's customers, how do you kind of recommend that you make sure a video has maximum impact for whatever purpose they're kind of using it for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's quite a few angles to go on this, but I would say, first and foremost, let your personality show. I think when you start with video, when anyone starts with video, when I started with video, I was really in my head, really oh, I don't like my voice. I don't like the way I look right now. I feel awkward. But you've got to get over that piece and then really let your personality show. So if you're quirky, if you're strange, if you're humorous, if you're serious, whatever it is that you are, just lean into your authentic nature. Don't try to be someone else. Don't try to sound like someone else. Obviously, there are some guidelines, over time, maybe you notice you say filler words, or you kind of rambly. So then maybe you tweak your message and you get a bit more effective there, but don't sound like a robot. And sometimes with video, like you need to be a little bit more animated to get it across. So I would say that's number one, let your personality show. I'd say too, like the typical things of lighting, background. I guess I'm like a walking what not to do in a video right now. If I can just like this is my master bedroom, but my dog a few days ago had a little attention-seeking accident on my bed. And so I guess it's a blessing in disguise because we're going to get a new mattress, I think.
Smart dog.
I know. So she was really just looking out for us, and the mattress is really old, so I'm pretty excited. But I would say like make it look nice, like good lighting. Not the greatest lighting right now because of all this, but good lighting, a nice background. If you don't have a nice background, like just spruce it up or try to get onto like a blank background. And we have a lot of tips on our website, but like don't light from behind because you'll go dark. Light from in front. Make sure you've got like headphones. If you're in a really noisy area, make sure you've got headphones. Things like that can just make your video a little bit more appealing and easy to watch for someone and digest.
Yeah. And it's funny when you were talking about filler words, I learned through doing video that I have a tendency to speak in epically long run-on sentences where I would realize that I would just say "and" between every sentence instead of actually speaking in sentences. And so I do think there's also something, and I know it's always like really painful to watch yourself or listen to yourself, but it is super helpful to recognize your own little quirks in terms of how you speak. And it's made me better at, I'm still terrible at it, but it's made me much better at recognizing that I don't need to just continuously ramble. I can just stop and let silence come in, right? And so I think there is something really good about video also to just like help you, and it's in sales, we do all the, like with Gong and all of the audio recording and stuff like that, but there's something really, it's almost more immediate feedback, I think, with video where you learn your little quirks of some of the ways that you can improve how you speak and how you communicate.
Yeah, and I think you're getting into a part of video that I find like it's like a happy accident or like outcome of it is that for my team, we're a business development team, we're going outbound, we're crafting a message and we're delivering a message hundreds of times a day. And video is a really great way to hone that message. So you're saying it 40 times a day if you're making 40 emails. And so then if you're leaving a voicemail or you're getting someone on a cold call, you've said that 40 times. Like you're not stumbling over it by now. And when you're writing your email, you know exactly what your wording is. So it's been like a really nice side effect of video is that you're really sharpening what you want to say to your prospects and customers.
Yeah. That's a great point. I hadn't really thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's, and there's a lot of, anytime you introduce a new medium, it gives you a new angle on every part of the process, which is fantastic. And I think there's a lot of different use cases for video in a second, but I want to come back to, because you made a really good point, which a lot of people don't talk about, which is video. One of the things that can help make video stand out or things that makes video special is giving you an opportunity to show your personality. So, and you mentioned sometimes you need to amp things up a little bit, but for a lot of salespeople, they're already pretty amped up.
Yes.
So how do you know when too much is too much? Because I know for me, like one of the things, I didn't have video when I was an SDR, but one of the things that I frequently got in call coaching was, oh, you need more energy, more excitement. And it got to the point where the one call, I remember I got really positive feedback on. I remember my boss, like, we didn't have a call recording either. He literally poked his head over the divider. He was like, hey, Ashleigh, that was a really good call. I was like, yeah, I sounded like a cheerleader on drugs. Like just like
I'm exhausted from that call.
I was, and it felt ridiculous. But and it was an interesting moment for me because apparently what felt ridiculous for me sounded really good. So that was interesting. But how do you know when too much is too much personality?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of tough. I think I always would go back to genuine, like being, it sounds very cliche, but actually being authentic. So after that video, did you feel good or did you feel like it was too much? And if you're getting feedback from your manager or your peers, we do a lot of video coaching. Your peers watch your videos all the time. I would hope the culture we've created at Vidyard, and hopefully the culture that the listeners have as well, is one where there's a safe place to maybe give someone that feedback. But I think it's about a pattern interrupt. For the most part, if you can catch your prospect and cut through their day and kind of delight them, like they definitely haven't gotten an over-the-top video. I doubt if you're hitting them with like a really great value proposition and you've put time into thinking about what's their problem and how can I help them, I don't think your over-the-top energy is going to bother someone so much that you don't get a positive response. So I think you bring up a good point that it's not just the energy and the way your video looks. The content of your video has to be really strong. It's not like a silver bullet where someone gets a video and they're like, wow, that was really creative. I'm going to book a meeting. You've got to like also be going in there with your research and the reason for why you're reaching out. So I think for the most part, if you're just like being your authentic self and taking coaching and critically analyzing your results, like if you're not getting any responses, but you're getting a lot of views, then you can question yourself and be like, why is everyone watching my video, but no one wants to talk to me? Is it my message?
You know, it's funny that you say all of this because when I first started in like phone sales, my very first phone sales job, they played like when we were going through training, they put us on the phones, they recorded like our calls, and then they played back what they thought was the best call that we had for the whole group. And my boss at the time was like, Kasey, you've got this really deep, soothing voice, and people are going to stay on the call and not listen to a single word that you're saying because it's boring and you're putting them to sleep. And what I realized is like, when I'm excited and when like the real me, when I'm excited and in a good mood, I talk with my hands. I have really over the top facial expressions, just like normally, like wear my expression on my sleeve. Like I'm really
Kasey
a bad
and I
liar.
love playing poker. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. And
Be the worst.
and so because of that, I've learned it's the same thing with video, where if I'm not talking with my hands, if I'm not making big facial expressions, I just sound sort of boring. And I think that that's sort of true for a lot of people. So I always think like, what do you do when you've had like one or two drinks? You're not drunk, but you're in a really good mood and you're talking about something you're really excited about with your friend. Like, what are you doing with your hands? What are you doing with your face? And like, those are the things that you kind of have to do on video or audio. Otherwise you just sound boring. You just are like a very like sedated version of you, kind of.
Yeah, and then couple that with the fact that a cold call can induce like crippling anxiety in you. Your voice doesn't really sound the greatest.
Yeah, no, I just put people to sleep.
I want to hear some of these calls because I can't imagine that.
Well, I don't know. They also were just like convinced that women wouldn't like me, but men would, because apparently I have this like very like smooth, soothing voice, which I don't think that I sound like. I think I sound like a teenage boy, but that's okay. But
interesting. I was going to say
wrong.
Your voice is it's a good podcast voice.
Well, thank you.
You have a face for video and a voice for podcasting.
You're double whammy.
Well, this is a side note, I did get a LinkedIn message from someone who said, I've got a face for podcasting, like Terry Gross on NPR is what he literally said in the message. Really nice guy.
Oh, wow.
There was some LinkedIn shaming of this individual.
I would hope so.
But so I think the more likely scenario when it comes to video is not that people are over the top. I think it's people that are going to be really nervous and be sort of skittish or scared on video.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your recommendation for people who get self-conscious about this stuff and who just don't think that they're going to be good, who are really nervous about starting? Like, how do you recommend they get over that anxiety?
Yeah, I think that's like the most common thing we hear from users that are just thinking about getting started. And so there's two main things I'll say here. One is that feeling of anxiety, like before you really master cold calling. It's a similar feeling with anything new, right? So you might have that similar anxiety of, I'm going to make this video, people are going to watch it. I don't like my voice. I don't like the way I look. Like, what if I mess up? The great thing is, though, on a cold call, you're put on the spot and you've got to do it right there. There's no retakes. With video, it's really take comfort in knowing it's only you recording. You can delete it as many times as you need to. You can come back to it if it's just like you've tried 10 times and the message just isn't working. Just put it on hold and come back to it later. And so I think that's the big one is everyone's self-conscious when they start, unless you aren't, I guess. I guess you are, you aren't. But the ability to are. Yeah, I would say most people are. And I think like the ability to re-record is just something to remind yourself of. You can like redo it 100 times if you needed to. But on the flip side, the authenticity of like some mistakes, some trying to get your thoughts in order is a good thing. It makes you more human. So I wouldn't like re-record it so many times that it just sounds like perfect. And the other thing is, because I heard from some really mean, like when I was in direct sales, when I would be speaking to some sales executives, I would hear like, I don't want my team on camera. I don't want my team on video. And I was always really thrown off by that. And I think that it doesn't matter if you are, first of all, I think it's a really shallow thing. I've heard people say that like you need to be good looking to be successful with video and sales. And I find that really a little bit sexist when people say like, oh, a really good looking girl will do really well in video. And I think that's pretty shallow and also pretty inaccurate. I think the beauty of video is that there's another person on the other end. Right now, like prospects are really overwhelmed with automated messages that seem like they're coming from not a real person. You get an email, you can tell it's templated, you never get a phone call. So you're wondering like that rep didn't even follow up with a phone call. I'm always surprised when I'm like, can get a phone call and get a cold call after an email. I'm finding like everything's really email heavy right now for prospecting. Yeah. So when you can come through with like a personalized video message from someone, it just reminds that person that, oh, wait, this is a person. And then they give you a little bit more time, which is what sales needs. They need just a little bit of time to say something really powerful and impactful to buy a bit more time of your prospect's attention. And so that would be number one. If you're self-conscious, the beauty of video isn't how you look or anything like that. It's just letting the other person know there's a person on the other end here. The other piece I would say is if you feel like you're not going to be able to make that connection, I would really try to dive in to video, like really try to use it, because I do think it's the way of the future. I think right now people are just dipping their toe into it. And there are always some people in sales who will like take risks and try those new tactics out. Like the people who tried social selling when everyone was like, what are you doing? And they will have big wins from it. But when it becomes the new norm and like everyone's using video, you've kind of missed the boat on standing out, and it just becomes status quo almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's super true. And especially right now, as everyone's trying to, like you said, everyone's getting all those automated messages, and we're all getting them. And we all know, and I'm just going to say it again in case anyone's curious, do not use COVID in your subject lines or in the first line of your email. It doesn't work.
Trashed.
Does not work. But people are looking for ways to break through the noise. And this isn't new, but it's hugely underutilized.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Reva, do you think there is anyone who shouldn't do video that's in sales?
No, I'm like really trying to think of like an objective answer here, but I don't.
We tried to do this earlier today. We couldn't think of anyone either. So.
Yeah, I'm just like going through like, no, I don't. Nope, I guess that's it.
Yeah. I think absolutely everyone can like harness the advantage. And I think the biggest point, honestly, which you keep hitting home over and over again, is personality and frickin' human connection. And I think that's one of the things about video that makes it so powerful is, look, all the automated messaging tools, like it's great that we have them, but now we've had them for a long time. And oh my God, everything is so templated. And it's like, I got a message yesterday about how someone really loved my Instagram post about yoga. I have never, not once ever in my entire life, posted anything about yoga on Instagram. And it was one of those things where it's like, oh dude, epic fail on whatever template you're using. I don't know how I got added to this, but like there's things like that happen all the time. And, especially if you're in the technology industry, we've seen it all. And so I think there's during this whole pandemic and like all of it, like I think there's just this deep like appreciation of things feeling more human, and video helps you do that.
Yeah, it's so true. I would even kind of back it up out of sales. I would say,
oh yeah,
like, I don't know about you
everything.
guys, but I'm getting on way more video calls lately at home. I know that's been touched on all over online, but right now at Vidyard, we are like heavily relying on video to stay in touch just as teams and as a company. And so the human connection, it works in more than just sales, I would say too.
Without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And it is cool. Like, we've used in my team, we've used the Vidyard, like the Go Vidyard thing for like just asynchronous communication. So if there's something, and I did it today where someone on my team was like trying to figure out this tool, and she was like missing something that was like way down in the bottom corner. And so I just recorded a video with like a screen share and was like, hey, you need to be doing this thing. And I sent it to her, and she was like, oh my God, that helped me so much. And so like, there's all these ways that you can use video. Yeah. I mean, there's all these ways that you can use it for like this asynchronous communication that just makes it easier and feels more human without it being, oh, let's schedule a call and let's get on a video together and the whole nine. Like it took me 2 minutes instead of 30.
I'm laughing because I literally had the same thing happen to me last week. And I think it was Vidyard again, but it was a customer support thing. Yeah. It was, hey, how come this isn't working? Same thing. And rather than it just being a static, check out this support article, it was, hey, Ashleigh, sorry you're confused. Here's how to do it.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. 20 seconds. Shout out to Joey. Thank you.
Yeah. I love that. That's so cool.
Little things like that, it makes a huge difference. So let's take a step back here and switch gears. So we've convinced everyone video is awesome. Everyone's going to go by Vidyard now. Your team's just going to be swamped, I'm sure.
We're ready.
We get a cut of that, right?
Yeah.
I think so. It's somewhere in that contract.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start just tell us a little bit about you. I mean, how did you get into sales?
Yeah, I got into sales through HR. I thought I really wanted to go into HR after school. And so I started in recruiting, and recruiting is like a form of sales. So
Totally.
and I was there, and a friend of mine was working at Oracle at the time, and he just talked me into joining the business development team there. So I joined there about 10 years ago, and it was such an incredible experience. It was an exposure to a tech world I didn't know, sales, never thought I would be in sales. And it was a really great experience at Oracle because they just pour money into sales training. And so I got to go through quite a bit of sales training there. And then when Oracle acquired Eloqua, that was kind of my light bulb moment that like marketing technology existed. And so I moved over there, and I had the opportunity to just be trained by sales leaders there that were trained to win at Eloqua. They were an incredible sales team. And so I got to learn all their ways, and was there for a few years. And then I moved to Vidyard because I just had this like, after seeing Eloqua, I was there post-acquisition, but there was these remnants of like this startup culture and this like really exciting experience to be part of the growth of something big. And so I had this urge to just like be part of a startup and a part of a Canadian startup. And so I went to Vidyard about 5 years ago, and it's just been a really amazing experience to like grow with the sales team here and be part of a Canadian company that's just a big success story.
It's so amazing. I love that. And it's funny because so Ashleigh and I talk about this all the time, and I'm ridiculously passionate about and we both are, about the fact that if you are starting your career and you want to be in business and you don't know what you want to do, we both are like, oh, you should go into sales because it's the perfect jumping off point for everything, right? Like you can go into a million different disciplines. I mean, I started my career in sales. I went into marketing. I know a ton of people that did the reverse from you. They started in sales. They went into recruiting. They went into HR. So I love hearing the stories of the reverse journey of you started in another discipline and we're like, wait a second, I think that sales thing is kind of interesting. And I love the like back and forth of that. And it's true. I mean, recruiting, it's sales.
There's a lot of
it's
cross-pollination there.
Oh,
yeah.
without a doubt. And it's really interesting too. Like now there's a ton of recruiters that use sales development methodology to actually reach out to candidates and to like fill talent pipeline. And so I love this, like the back and forth between how these two different but similar disciplines can really learn from one another and kind of feed into each other. So it makes total sense that you went that journey. And I obviously love that you got the startup bug.
I'm fascinated by this. You went from like the behemoth that is Oracle. And I say this as an Oracle baby. So my dad worked for Oracle, so I was aware. I went to take your daughter to work days at Oracle in Redwood Shores for a couple of years.
Oh my gosh.
It was, I loved it. I got to draw on the whiteboards. They had like career fairs for like 10-year-olds, like all the different things you could do at Oracle. I came home with t-shirts.
They're like filling their pipeline.
Oh, they try young.
That's long-term pipeline growth.
Yeah, it was interesting. But I also, I have two questions. One, I'm fascinated by the big to small, because you see a lot of times people going the other way. They start small, have bad experiences, go big. But you don't see a lot of people start big and then go small because it's seen as riskier. So I'm curious, about that, but also I'd love to just kind of ask this question. You do not have to answer if you're uncomfortable with this. Oracle does have a reputation for being a pretty cutthroat, bro-tastic, fire the bottom 10% culture. And I'm curious if that was your experience there. If it sounds like you had such a great positive experience, kind of that's what that was like.
Yeah. So the first part I'll say I think I was just really lucky. It was kind of like I was exposed to things at the right time to make decisions. So I started at Oracle. I had no intention of leaving Oracle. I really enjoyed my progression there and eventually wanted to become like a field sales rep, owning a territory, working with an inside sales rep. That's like the dream of sales for someone at Oracle. Yeah. And then we acquired Eloqua. And that's when I took notice to like a new world of application sales and also marketing technology. And I think if that hadn't happened, and the fact that Eloqua was Canadian, it kind of informed me that, okay, whoa, there's like a startup tech. What is startup tech? Like, it sounds silly, but I didn't really, before I joined Oracle, I didn't know what like tech was. I didn't know what this tech industry was. So, and then getting exposed to Eloqua, I didn't really know what startups were because I was at Oracle. We acquired companies, but it didn't really click to me that like a company starts from something. I was just working at the biggest tech company there. So getting exposed to Eloqua, I realized like when I met these people, they were so passionate about Eloqua and its history and the success of it and just the way they built it. Like the people at the Eloqua division had been there for years and years. And when I learned about the founders of Eloqua and just the type of people they are and the way people spoke about working on their teams, I was like, oh, that's like such an experience and not one that I'm really having at Oracle. Like I love my team at Oracle, but I will never meet the CEO. I get on these earnings calls and I don't know the people on these calls. There's thousands of people that tune in. And that's when I started realizing that there's like another kind of breed of a company that would maybe be way more fulfilling for me. And so I took a risk in moving there because there was a level of comfort working at Oracle. There was always like somewhere else you could go. If you didn't hit your number, you kind of could just like fly under the radar. And I just said, like, I need to be a bit more exposed. That's what I needed. So that was the reason I moved. And I really don't think I'll go big again. And the second question was,
is it as cutthroat? Is it as bad as it's rumored to be?
Yeah, you know, I don't. There were some things that happened there, like where I was like, whoa, that person, you know, got terminated or things like that. And I think because it was so big, you were seeing that more often than a smaller company that you're not seeing terminations all the time. It was really male dominated. And so it's funny, like I'm pretty used to, I think anyone in sales is pretty used to being like not 50-50, like having a lot of girls on your team. But it's something I came into from the very beginning. So it's not anything new or different.
It almost becomes weird when it is 50-50.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. It's pretty normal. So
it's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, we're working on it.
The BDR team at Vidyard is 50-50, which is really nice.
That's impressive.
And
honestly,
wait,
so go ahead.
I was going to say, I think honestly, and Reva, just to give you some credit, I swear to whatever you believe in, that comes down to leadership. And more often than not, the teams that are doing the best with diversity have diverse leadership. It starts at the top.
Culture and hiring is a top-down thing, 100%.
Yeah.
Like 100%. And that's the thing, like it's, I learned that being on a team where we had a small office in Portland and the rest of the office was in San Francisco. And the Portland office had the most incredible culture. We were all like ridiculously close, super diverse team. Actually, I shouldn't say super diverse, but gender super diverse. And I haven't worked there in like 5 years. We still have like alumni happy hours. None of us work there anymore, but we're all still so close. And then the culture in San Francisco is really, really toxic. And people would be like, why does Portland have the most amazing culture? And I was like, oh, because the guy that ran the Portland office is like the kindest, most wonderful human. And so he created this like little haven. And, you know, and so that's the other thing that is amazing about startups is like, when it's good, man,
It's
it
good.
is so good. It's so wonderful. So
Yeah.
like how big was Vidyard when you joined? Because you've been there for a while and like through their really tremendous and exciting growth.
Yeah, so I joined as I think I was employee 75 and
Whoa.
we're at over 200 now. So
Such a great time. Yeah.
Bravo.
yeah, it was exactly what I was seeking and the experience was, yeah, you're so right with the culture. Like that is something that you might be able to get at a big company, but there's just something super special about a group of people that are like that all understand the end goal and what you're working on, and like you can all be working together on something. You can't get that outside of a startup.
No.
The more people you add in, the more variables there are, the easier it is for things to get disrupted. And the nice thing I'll say, having had glimpses of when startups can be really good and simple experiences of when startups can be really bad, the good news is when they're bad, they don't last very long. So if you're in that right now and you're like, mine's not very good, chances are you don't have much longer that you're going to be there.
Yeah. Get to looking.
Yeah.
Have that backup. So in our pre-interview, we were having a discussion and you have, and I mentioned even in your intro that you have a delightful daughter.
Yes.
And motherhood and parenthood obviously is a huge part of life. And one of the things I'm really curious about, especially because we talk about culture from the top down, what has the impact of being a mother had on your team or on your leadership development?
Yeah, I really love that question. And it kind of made a lot of things click for me as I was thinking about this. But I'm new into leadership. So just in September, when I returned from mat leave, is when I made the switch from being on the commercial sales team at Vidyard to leading the business development team. And I think my daughter, she's almost 20 months now. So, you know, she's young, but she's going through a really interesting phase where she's learning things for the first time. She's wanting to do a lot of things on her own. She's coming into some confidence and being able to do things herself. And I realized that the type of leadership I think I strive to be is sort of like the mother I strive to be, and maybe even the human I strive to be, where, you know, I want my daughter, she's, for instance, going through things, she wants to do things on her own. And I want to be there to empower her to feel confident to do those things on her own. So maybe I could do it faster or do it better, but I think the like message is she should probably do it, and it will be painstaking for me to watch maybe, but that's the learning opportunity. So
For both
I think
of
that
you.
goes with it. Yeah, exactly. And like it teaches me patience. And then afterwards, I have like a huge amount of pride that she just learned something, right? And I started my career in the BDR role, and I think I was like really lucky to have leaders who empowered me too, to make mistakes or learn on my own, even though they might have known the answer. So that's something I'm working on, is don't do things for my team if I can. Find the way to be a bit reserved and like give them some space to build that confidence themselves. The same's with just being like empathetic. Like my daughter is going through things I'm not going through right now. So being empathetic to that, and, you know, coming to her with kindness and being empathetic to the fact that I'm not doing a business development role right now, but I know how it was. It's a huge grind. And I think now in like a more digital forward world, it can be more exhausting. You can get burned out. You can feel like kind of a hamster on a wheel. And so being empathetic to what my team might be going through. And then just being kind of present. I think that's a big one for my daughter, not being on my phone so much or my computer so much, but the same can be said with my team. I think especially remote, you can tell when you're speaking to someone and they're on their phone or they're thinking about something else. But I know my daughter really appreciates when I'm present with her and I can be in the moment. And I think that's the biggest thing you can give your team as a leader is not always the answers to their problems, but just like super present and a listening ear and someone that's there for you. So I think in a long-winded answer, that's what the type of mother I try to be is the type of, I try to bring that into my leadership a bit.
I think that's amazing. And I wish that more leaders spoke about the comparisons or the things that they learn in the same way, because you make a pretty powerful analogy of, kind of the similarities and the fact that sometimes you just want to rush through things and like get it done. And that doesn't actually serve your team. Having the patience,
especially BDRs. I think,
yeah.
I mean, Kasey's heard me rant about this ad nauseum, but especially when you're dealing with people who are in their first year or two in sales.
Oh my God, yeah.
You have to teach them how to think, and you have to give them a safe place to experiment, to find their voice, to figure out what works for them. And it's not as simple as like, here's the playbook, do it exactly. Because then they're not learning anything other than to recite one script. And that's not going to help them in 2 years.
And not only that, it's also the business acumen side of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, how do you handle when as a BDR, when your AE is really
pushy,
pissed at you for something, or right? Like, how do you handle rejection? How do you handle the negative stuff? Like all of the things that, when you first get out of college, you don't have any experience, not really.
How to ask questions, how to conduct yourself in meetings, when to push your boss on a question in a meeting versus one-on-one in private.
Or
no one teaches you how to do these things.
Nobody. And or in non-COVID times, how to handle a work event.
Yeah.
Should you have a drink? How many drinks do you have? How do you talk to a CEO at a big company that you want to connect with, but you're super intimidated, like all of these things. And there's something that's very similar, I think, to parenting that we don't always pay attention to. And I think makes you have more compassion and more patience if you like recognize that similarity. And so I think it's wonderful that you have that. Another sign, frankly, that women make really, really good leaders because they're more likely to make that comparison, I think.
Yeah, and I think I would add that if you Ashleigh, you were mentioning like it's not all about just going off this one playbook and sending this one, like going through this one script, but that just kind of put a light bulb in my head that I want to create a space for my team where they're coming to me with ideas, because I learn a lot from my team. Sometimes I feel like I haven't done this role for 10 years, let's say. I rely on you to give me feedback and tell me what's working and what's not. And a lot of the things we implement in our process are from our team. Like the BDR team at Vidyard is very smart, hungry, creative. They really want to win. They really are customer centric. So if they've got a really great idea about, this cadence sounds really pushy, really salesy, and I think we could go about it this way instead, I don't want them to feel like there's no space to come with that idea, because I rely on them heavily for those ideas.
Well, it's also, right, like when you've done a thing a bunch, that's when you fall into we do it this way because we've always done it this way kind of thinking. And so there's something kind of amazing about people that sort of don't know any better. Right? Like they come up with ideas because they don't know that you're not supposed to do it that way. And that's when like really amazing creative things happen. And frankly, if you look at who's made the most use of video, like in our industry, it's the super young people. Like it's the young kind of leaders. Like there's a reason why it's like Morgan Ingram talking a ton about using video versus actually John Barrows. Okay. Like it's because, you know, Morgan is much more of that like new guard. He's like, wait, you know, and so I think we see this all the time of like young BDRs getting way more creative and crazy about stuff. And granted, sometimes it totally blows up in their face. 100%.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure. But that means the risk you took was interesting and
well, and it's
totally.
when I'm working with people one-on-one, when I was running SDR, BDR teams, one of the things I tell people is like, I want you to piss someone off once a week.
Yes.
Because that way you know you're not leaving anything on the table.
Yep.
Because then you know you're going right up to that edge. And it's really easy to apologize and walk something back. It's really hard to get someone's attention again. Yeah. As long as you're not being legitimately insulting and rude, which is a different thing altogether. But if you're being a little bit too pushy, you can walk that back and be like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to insult or whatever else. You can walk that back in 3 seconds. You can't walk back someone hanging up on you because you were boring.
And when you've got a good boss, your boss can jump in and be like, so sorry about so-and-so. They got a little excited. Don't worry, we've coached them, you know, and then it can be handled. And oftentimes like, you know, transitioned to the AE. And it's always, and I do think that culture is, I see that a lot more in startups, where like a VP of sales at a startup is a lot more likely to be like, dude, I have no problem jumping in and saving something because a BDR pushed just a little too far. They like celebrate that. Whereas if you're at a huge company, they're a lot more likely to sort of frown on that and get kind of pissed. And great things happen from taking risks, not from playing it safe.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And it's just that creative element. It's like, how are you going to interrupt someone's day and catch their interest and get 10 seconds of their attention? And I think that needs a creative team who's willing to try new things and not just sit there and do your typical day-to-day tasks. You've got to be asking yourself like, okay, how am I booking this meeting today? How am I getting this person's attention today? And it's not always the same playbook.
Yeah, totally.
For sure.
So okay, as a mom, how are you dealing? How are you dealing with childcare and working from home? Because I think this is like one of the biggest challenges that working parents are facing right now. And it's something that I don't know that there's an amazing answer. So I'm super curious to hear, like, how are you handling it?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty blessed with my circumstance, I have to say. Like, my husband's working from home too. So we have figured out a way to divide our days up. And Vidyard was really adamant at the very beginning to find a schedule that works for you, which I am really thankful for. And it kind of was like a top-down message. Like, leaders were kind of leading by example, so you didn't feel weird doing it. But right away when I went to work from home, I was doing like either morning or afternoon shifts. So I'm off half a day every day to hang out with my daughter Vale, play with her, go outside, go for walks, put her down for naps, and not feel guilty at all that I'm not online, and everyone knows it. So there's no meetings there, which is really sweet. So I think it was about setting boundaries and just letting people know, like, I'm gonna be on from 8 to 12 and 7 at night till 9. So I'm like totally free for meetings, but I'm not around from 1 to 5. So like, please don't book any meetings. My husband has been super supportive. So if there are days where, I need to put a full day in for whatever reason, like this week we just had company kickoff. So we did 3 days of like our kickoff on Zoom, and it was super awesome actually. But, he needed to kind of do a bit more than typical. So that was really nice, but it actually hasn't been too bad. It's I think when we go back to some sort of normal, I'll be like, wow, I'm exhausted. But right now I'm not really feeling it.
That's amazing. And that's wonderful. And I think I think it's going to be really interesting to see when we do return how parents, what that looks like.
I know. Yeah. I don't know what it will look like.
Or when it'll happen, let's be honest.
I know. I do think it just like kind of puts a light on the fact that we can do a lot of our work at home, which I'm kind of a fan of. I think there's going to be that balance of like go to the office, but also feel free to work from home.
And
I think so too. And I think in sales especially, you didn't see remote sales teams before. And a lot of sales leaders thought it was 100% impossible. And what you're starting to see, and there's a lot of content coming out on social of sales leaders being like, oh my God, productivity is actually up. We're selling, we're doing really, really well. Like the numbers actually look really good, even with, you know, a tough economy and all of these things. And they're like, wait a second, we might have to completely rethink how we run our teams. And I think it's going to, our industry almost more than like any other, I think it's going to change things a lot because our department, like the sales department, I think pretty much more than anything else has been in person. Like you go into the office unless you're like the road warrior and then you're like visiting clients all day.
I mean, that's been the trend over the past 20 years, hasn't it? To be moving away from the road warriors and more towards inside sales, phone sales, telesales anyway. So now it's just kind of compounding this fact. And I'll say this, like I will be the first one to admit, until I started working remotely myself and doing remote SDR, BDR training, I did not think you could train someone to be an SDR, BDR who was exclusively from home, because I found being in, I would call them the pit, but having that community of people who are cold calling all together and you can hear everyone else's conversations and learn from that. But the fact of the matter is technology's caught up with us. You can do a lot, not everything, but a lot. So I want to kind of push back on you, Reva, as kind of the SDR manager who's active. Like, what have been the successes and the challenges from the past month or two from your team at Vidyard that you've observed happening?
Yeah, I'll say the big challenge is everyone misses each other. Yeah. So yeah, it comes up a lot on one-on-ones and in team meetings. It's just like, I can't wait to get back into the office so that we can all sit together again and hear each other on calls and keep each other motivated. And that's pretty nice to see. I think for me as a manager, I'd love to work from home a little bit, but be in the office. I think for a company like Vidyard, you can't pass up being in the office. The culture is too amazing. The office is too amazing. Like, we decided to work at Vidyard because of the people there. So I can totally get my team really, really wanting to get back to the office. But I think the successes have been surprising to me. I thought there would be a really big learning curve getting to productivity again. I thought there'd be trouble getting motivated. And there has been like some trouble with some people finding it harder than others. But for the most part, the team really banded together on like checking in with each other, setting up calls with just them, not me, just to keep each other like every day, like, how are you doing? Let's get it. And like doing that in a virtual sense. And I really was surprised by how quickly, like we went to working from home on a Friday, and we didn't really see, like, by the next week, everyone had been back at productivity. So within 5 days, people had kind of struck their groove again. So that was a huge success. I'd say too, we are probably owning our time a bit better. So some people on my team, they go for bike rides at lunch. I have a mom on my team. She splits her day up to take care of her son as well. And so I think it's given people that confidence to make decisions for yourself of like, what schedule suits you and how are you going to be most productive.
That's super true. And it's going to be fascinating to see kind of what becomes trends and what becomes flash in the pan. And I'm looking forward to it. That's kind of where I am. I have my theories, but
I think like the one thing we will take from this is like a level of productivity. Maybe the people who are like juggling kids and work. But I think like the surprise to me is how quickly I can get something done if I need to get it done in like 30 minutes.
When you have no distractions, when there's no like chit chat by the desk and like all of that. And yeah, you miss out on that kind of team bonding, but oh my God. I mean, the level of productivity is kind of amazing. And
It
being a
is.
little bit more intentional about bonding is kind of a
Yeah, that's a really good point. Intentional about bonding instead of just like, whoa, there went like 45 minutes talking to someone in the kitchen that I really
Yeah.
needed to get this work done.
Well,
Yep.
honestly, I think it's even kind of the opposite too. Like I'm someone who I chit chat around the office. I'm not going to say I'm not a bit of a gossip. I totally am. But at the same time, I'm also not someone who was going to hang out after work with my work coworkers. Like I'm going home. I got dogs. I got a husband. I would much rather hang out with them. Not that I don't love my coworkers when I had them, but so to have it be, it's almost been kind of an egalitarian thing where it's like, okay, now it's like, okay, everyone has to be intentional about their bonding. So now all of a sudden I'm getting attention that otherwise I would have had to, rearrange my schedule and give up my evenings, which I'm normally pretty reticent to do, which is exciting. And I want to be aware of time and everything. So I think we want to switch gears here really quick to our last and final section, which is the lightning round.
Okay.
So these are a series of questions designed to be a little bit more fun, a little more lighthearted. Some are serious, but some are completely silly. Don't think a ton about them. Just whatever comes to mind first is going to be fantastic. So first question, what's your morning routine?
I get up like at 5:30 or 6 because my daughter is an early bird, and probably lie in bed with her till about 7. And then shower, coffee first. And then if I'm working, I get right to work around like 8:30. And if I'm not, we, play some puzzles and have some breakfast, stuff like that.
I think that's pretty wonderful. Okay, so pick one person who you feel has just made a really significant impact on your career.
I would say my manager I had before I went on mat leave. I don't know if I have to say their name or not. But
If you want to, you can.
Okay, I will say, I bet he won't even, I don't know if he'll hear this, but Stu McCrory, he was my manager before mat leave, and just the way he is as a person, not just as a leader, but is something that I'll always remember.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's your pump up song?
Oh my gosh. I will say, have you guys ever played Kahoot?
Yes.
No.
So that song has been in my head this week because we've just come off company kickoff. So I'm going to say the Kahoot song is my pump up song. If you don't know it,
awesome.
Check it out.
I'm going to have to check that out.
It will be added to the Spotify playlist.
Oh my God.
If I can find it.
If we can find it. Okay, what's one thing you wish you'd learned earlier in your career?
I wish I had learned earlier in my career to have the confidence to make good decisions. Like you can make a good decision. You don't need to underestimate yourself at making decisions.
That's powerful. All right. What's your favorite sales book?
Sales book.
Let's redo that without the dog barking in the background.
Are you sure?
Yeah, mine is crying.
It's fine. What's your favorite sales book?
I don't have one. I don't really read sales books. I would much rather listen to a podcast of a sales leader or read blogs or LinkedIn articles, but yeah, I haven't really read a sales book that stuck with me. It's more the thought leaders on LinkedIn that like just give you that daily dose of inspiration or like an idea that you're going to use that I really love.
That's kind of telling. You're a modern girl. Okay, so what's a way that someone could have been a better ally to you?
Oh, what's that word? Okay, I don't know what the word is, but I will say the way someone is a really great ally to me right now is probably the way someone could have been a better ally to me. Someone in my workplace right now is an incredible ally because I think something they do that's really powerful is like on team calls or in big meetings, they make it a point to address me or recognize me for an idea I had. And maybe it's not even always my full idea, but they give credit in front of people that really builds my...
Huge.
Yeah, it's huge, especially when it comes from someone who is really respected at the company. So I think that's a really amazing way to be an ally to someone, is build them up in front of people.
All right. So the follow-up to that is, what's one way that you're working on being a better ally to others?
I think just kind of being authentic. So if I were to, I hate saying authentic, but if I were to give them kudos and praise privately, making sure I give that praise, or I can stand behind them or defend them publicly as well.
I think that's huge. And I think it's something that Ashleigh and I have talked about a ton, right? Like the public recognition. It's huge.
It matters. It really
matters.
does. At both personally and in your own head, as well as, especially when you're looking at within a company and reputation.
Absolutely.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Last, but certainly not least, what is your guilty pleasure after a long day?
I really love like The Bachelor or that type of vibe.
Yes.
A bag of chips or dairy-free ice cream or wine. Any of those. All of those would be really great.
Yeah, I am so with you on all of those.
You've got me on everything except The Bachelor. I can't do that. But wine, chips, yes.
I don't know. What was it? Like Love at First Sight? I don't know if you watched that on Netflix.
Oh, yes. Or is it Love is Blind? Love is Blind.
Love is Blind, excuse me. Truly terrible and amazing at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
It was so cringy. You couldn't, it was like secondhand embarrassment.
Yes.
Couldn't look away.
Yes. And then you like hate watch 80% of it.
Yeah.
That's me in Tiger King. I hate watched Tiger King.
Oh yeah. No, I don't. I
couldn't do Tiger King.
I couldn't either.
No.
See, I could.
No.
I can do that. I can handle I can't do Real Housewives and all that. That does not. Jersey Shore. I can't do any of that. But I will do all the disaster TV there is out there. If it's about people dying horrible deaths, I am in.
I'm in.
All that. Unless it's like CSI, I can't do that.
This was fantastic. This was such a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a really good and really meaty one. I feel like we covered a ridiculous amount of ground, from the power of video to being a mom to being a leader to recognition and representation and like all of these really good things. So thank you for this.
Yeah, I have to say I love that it's like a woman podcast, and I loved your questions about allyship. I think that asking that of everyone is so awesome. So like, I love that kind of angle on this podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So anybody listening, of course, please take the State of Sales survey. This is our survey where we are trying to better understand the prevalence or lack of discrimination and harassment in B2B sales, so that we can better understand kind of how things are today, and we can talk about and figure out how we can help elevate our profession. And of course, thanks to our sponsors for that, Bravado, VanillaSoft, and SalesLoft. And of course, as always, if anybody has questions or wants to reach out, come find us on social. And Reva, thank you so much for this. This was amazing. And we're super excited to share it and all of your words of wisdom with the world.
Yeah, I had so much fun. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.